I'm here today to log into free internet chess server. Gonna play a standard game. I'm gonna try a little different time control now. 30 minutes with a 5-second increment. I want to try to do a 5-second increment so that the game won't be flagged. Okay, seek. Okay, so let's see. We want to play standard. And let's see. Let's get this up to 30 minutes. And here we go. Alright, seek is out. Let's see how long it takes to get it accepted. And as white, I'll play the chess opening for you, but I'm black, and we get to play against d4. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to play a Jagoran defense if that's what he allows. Okay, well, he played bishop f4. I'm not too worried about that. I'll still play it Jagoran style. One of my strategies here at some point is to play for f6 and e5. And if he restrains that, I'll play for f6, e6, and bishop d6. And usually that is a little bit restrained because white will play knight f3 at some point, which kind of stops e5. Okay, but now here on knight f3 I want to play bishop g4. I've done this before. It's similar to the Jagoran in a lot of ways, and it may even transpose if white plays c4 here. So I may hold back on the f6 idea. I've played this type of system several times before, and I will be playing e6 and bishop d6 here shortly. In some cases I even get f5 in. Okay, so let's see how white, let's see how white conducts things. Okay. At some point he'll play e3 or he will play c4. I'm kind of expecting e3 here. No, we played knight bd2. Okay, that's fine with me. Now I'm going to play e6 so I can continue my development of my pieces, and I'm going to be playing bishop d6, at which point I expect him to play bishop g3. So suppose he plays h3, I'll just drop the bishop back, and then when I play bishop d6, he doesn't really have bishop g3 anymore. He would have to take, which helps develop my queen on d6. Okay, so now we play bishop d6. Okay, now he may play bishop g3 here. That's okay. Is he going to try queen a4 at some point, followed by knight e5? I don't know. Not too worried about that at this point. I'm not too worried about knight e5 at this point either. I'll just take it with my knight and put my bishop on c5. Okay. I guess I have to watch for some tricks. Yeah, what I mean by some tricks are knight takes, pawn takes, bishop c5. There's a potential queen check here, which might drop this bishop on g4, but his bishop's in the way, so I have to make sure he doesn't have an adequate move with that bishop to bring that into play. So let me just stop and think about this. We've got plenty of time. Okay, so let's see. What are my candidate moves here? Okay, I've played similar positions to this many times, and I'm not overly concerned with a couple of items here. But the main point is, okay, knight takes. If he takes with a pawn, I drop the bishop to c5. Now I can play queen a4 check. Okay, now if I play c6, he has tricky moves like bishop. No, we can't play bishop h6. I just take it. He's not threatening g7. Well, he was, but then I protect my bishop. So where can his bishop go that's useful? Well, he really doesn't have a lot of squares. Okay, so this gets my bishop on a better diagonal. I'm just going to take on e5, and we'll go from there. And I expect him to take with the pawn, and I'll just put the bishop on c5 when I have a decent diagonal for it. Okay. So white should be playing d takes e5 here any moment. Okay, so waiting for that to happen. Okay, where is it? Okay, come on, play it. D takes e5. Oh, you took with the bishop. Okay. Well, I don't mind that so much, but I do have to be careful after I take on e5 if that's the move I want to play. The reason is that he would then have the idea of that check in mind. So one thing I can do is not even bother to take on e5 and just develop a piece. And the point of that is that it takes the sting out of let's see, what's it take the sting out of? He doesn't open up the fourth rank, his fourth rank, with a d takes e5, so he doesn't have a queen a4 check winning the bishop. So if I play knight f6, he can still give a check, and I can do a number of things here. I can play c6, I can play queen d7, and if the queens are exchanged, I'll just take back with the king. Okay, so I don't think bishop takes e5 is the right move. I think the better move is knight f6. Okay, just looking at it briefly, bishop takes d6, d takes e5. Now he has a threat, and I can't play knight f6, so I have to play a move like queen d7 or c6 to stop his check, or simply move my bishop out of the way, and I don't really want to move my bishop. So what I'll do is I will just develop a piece, and I will play knight f6, and if he plays queen a4 check, like I say, I will play queen d7 and let him make some exchanges. Okay, there's one more thing. Let's just look at this a little deeper. Okay, we don't want to rush things since we have plenty of time. Okay, knight f6. Okay, what he can play, this is what I'm just looking at now. Knight f6, he can play how did that go? Okay, queen a4 check, queen d7, queen takes d7 check, king takes d7, bishop takes d6. Now his point is that he's going to follow up with e4. You see, his e-pawn is no longer pinned. So if I take on d6 with the king, well, you know, my knight's still there. He can't really play e4, but he can play f6, f3, and bishop f5, and I've thwarted him from pushing e4. Okay, knight f6 is the move. Alright, now what's he going to do? Like I say, other candidate moves for him other than queen a4 check are moves like queen b3. Not too worried about that as much. If anything, I can play b6 and be quite free of a few things. But see, maybe not. Gotta check these things. Okay, so I'm looking for some way for him to combine queen e4, get that e4 thrust in at any point in time. Can white do that and get away with it and give me any kind of problem? But I'm happy right now. I think I've got an equal position. White doesn't really have much to show for the advantage of the first move, but let's see. He did play queen b3. Okay. Okay, now, how do I want to handle that? I can gambit the b pawn and just castle, and on queen takes b7, I can play rook b8 and gambit the a pawn. He takes it. I take on b2. What have I accomplished? I'm on the 7th rank. He's on the 7th rank. He's got an outside pass pawn. Okay, let's first off, before that's certainly playable, I gambit a pawn and have some activity here, and I've got a whole lot of development. But let's just take a look at b6 for a second, because the idea here is that he tries to make the game tactical, take advantage of my lack of my king's position. Okay, so I play b6 and he plays. Can he play? He can't really play e4. Well, he's threatening a check. That's the point. Okay, he gambits a pawn to give a check on b5. That's right. Okay, so now what do? Do I castle? Okay, if I castle, then he plays e takes d5, and if I take with the pawn, he could play bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and then queen takes d5 and win the pawn. Okay, so e4 is a good move if I play b6. So let's consider giving up the pawn here. Yeah, I did fear slightly queen b3 here, but I'm not too worried about it at this stage. See, he doesn't have a lot of development on the king side. His king bishop still can't get into play, so he's still 3 moves from castling away from castling on the king side. So if I just castle, my king's safe. He takes on b7. I play rook b8. He takes on a7, and now I take on b2. Now, like I say, I've given up a pawn for this. What do we have? We have, if he plays e3, if he plays e3, I have some possibilities. Let's see, where would I go? It's nice to have that rook on the 7th rank, and like I say, and his a-pawn is long way away from queening. I can start undermining a few things here. Let's see. If anything, I can play queen b8 and just offer a queen exchange, and I'll have these nice doubled rooks on the open file, and then his a-pawn will be weak. I could even play queen a8 here. Yeah, queen a8 seems like a reasonable move. Queen a8 just offers to trade the queens. Where's he going to put his queen? He pretty much has to take, right? He could play queen a6, so queen takes, trade queens. Now I'm threatening to win my pawn back on a2. How can he save it? All he can do is push it, and like I say, it should become a target at some point. And let's see. Then, he can always throw a bishop takes d6 in. Not too worried about that. And I can throw something similar in, bishop takes e5, and mess up his pawns a little bit. D takes e5, and then knight back to d7. Then the knight's ready to come into play by way of c5 or even b6. Yeah, I've always preached development, so I'm going to stop, and I'm just going to castle and let him have the pawn. Let's play some adventurous chess here. Okay, so now look, black has all this development. The king's castled, 3 minor pieces are out, and a pawn is offered. And if black wants it, he's welcome to take it. So we're just going to let him have it. Okay, so not too worried about pawns. It's a long way for him to use that pawn against me in the ending, and I've got plenty of development to count for it. Do I have the 3 tempos a pawn is worth? Well, I'm close to it. He's three moves away from castling, and I haven't developed my queen, but I may just offer the pawn again next move. If you play something like e3, I can play queen d7 and I won't even have to gambit a pawn if he takes on b7, because I have rook fb8. It's just winning the pawn back, and I keep my a pawn. And I could even on queen takes b7, I could even play queen d7 and just force him to play queen b3, and then I play rook fb8, and I start chasing his queen a little bit. So black's got plenty of play here if white takes the pawn. I've got other ways to play it other than the line I just demonstrated, where I gambit the a7 pawn as well. So let's see how white conducts his game. Okay, he's got some time to think. He didn't take it. Okay, that's good, because he realizes that it's trouble to take it. Now, my three candidate moves, let's try to find three. Bishop takes e5 is a possibility, and just queen d7. The thing I like about queen d7 is that it develops the queen, and I stay a little bit ahead in development here. Let's see, so queen d7. His most logical move is not to take on b7, but to develop his bishop so that he can castle. So what I need is some kind of a follow-up. I've equalized the position, but now we've got to try to focus on getting some kind of an active plan here. If I'm going to play for a win, I have to have an active plan. Okay, so let's see. One thing about taking on e5 is that that it opens up the d file slightly. So, for instance, see, we'll just try to combine these themes. If I take on e5, the d file is open. So, if I put a knight on e4 and he trades again, the e file is the whole d file is open, and I'm on it. So maybe I can combine that at some point with a move where I can take advantage of that open d file, but it just seems like it doesn't lead to anything directly. It might even give me slightly worse of it, simply because I'll have pawns remaining on white squares, and I have a white squared bishop, and he will be getting pawns on black squares, and he has the white squared bishop. So I'll just say bishop takes e5, d takes e5, knight e4. Now he doesn't really have time for f3, but if he takes knight takes e4, and I play d takes e4, that's what I'm saying. Now we both have double pawns, but his e5 pawn may become a target. It's now his move. Okay, he probably doesn't want to take on b7 for similar reasons, simply because I've opened him up a little bit. He could throw h3 and g4 in so that he can get rook d8 in, or rook d1. Let's see. So h3, bishop h5, g4, bishop g6, now rook d1. Where does my queen go? Well, my queen goes to g5. It's attacking e5, and I'm willing to give up the b pawn for that pawn. And his king is still stuck in the center, and his king side is a little weak. If he does castle king side, I have some immediate ways to start opening up that king side by pushing pawns against his advanced pawns. So that gives me some potential. So I'm kind of thinking that I can do this. You know, the first reason is it comes down to some of these things that I talk about, thinking deficiencies. You don't always want to play certain moves because they just go against the grain of what you're trained, and getting off the dark squared bishops and putting pawns on light squares just seems to be anti-positional as far as the bishop's concerned. But this seems to hold up, and it holds up simply because he's behind in development here. And so what other candidate move do I have besides bishop takes e5? The other candidate move is queen d7, but that just gets him a little closer to development. So chances are he's not going to play bishop e2. He's not going to play bishop b5, which lets me play c6. He's going to play bishop d3. Now this idea might have a little more merit, except he's on e4 a little bit more. D takes e4, or bishop takes e5, d takes e5. Now knight e5 doesn't seem to work because he has control of e4. Okay, so other than bishop takes e5, what would my candidate move be? Okay, at some point he's still not really, I'm not worried about him grabbing on b7, but what do I do here to make progress? I guess I could play c5. c5 has an immediate threat.
Draw offered.
Draw offered. Get away. c5 threatens to play c4 with the fork, and would offer to trade off one of my wing pawns for a center pawn, so if he stops and liquidates... Yeah, I go by development. I think the other line is fine, but I think queen d7 is the better move because, as I always preach, develop your pieces. Okay, so no draw. And I spent 16 minutes on this game. Have to pick it up a little bit. Okay, not too worried about that. Okay, now I expect bishop d3, in which case I'm planning c5. Now he may kick with f3 or h3 too. I'm not too worried about either of those moves. Okay, so let's see. So the other line was fine. Taking on e5 was a line, but queen d7 is good too, simply because it gets guys developed. And you know, the other one had some attacking chances against the king side. It's kind of hard to go against that. But I guess it's one good thing about chess. Sometimes you have more than one good choice, and as I've always said, a developing move is usually never a bad choice. So here we have it, and his draw offer has been refused, so he has to play. What's he going to do? Like I say, I kind of expect bishop d3. If he doesn't play it now, he will soon enough. He might play f3. Oh, he played it. Now I'm just going to play c5, which has an immediate threat. Now what can he do? He could play c4, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about that. So now we play c5 and put the question to him. And I'm not too worried if he takes on f6 and gives me doubled pawns, because he's not going to get anywhere with any attack on h7. Oh, dang it. Keep losing the screen. Okay, c5. Now he can't take on c5 because his bishop hangs. So he could take on d6 first, but that's fine with me. Like I say, b7 is not a concern of mine. I'm not too worried about it. He still hasn't completed his development, and he can't at the moment because I have this threat of c4 winning. So he's got to come up with a move here. He may take on d6 and then take on c5, and that's fine with me. Like I say, I will have given up a wing pawn for a center pawn, and then my rooks are connected, whereas his aren't yet. He still has to castle to get his rooks connected. I'm going to be... let's see, so bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, d takes c5, queen takes c5, he can castle, and I'm ready for some kind of play. I can stick a rook on the b file, or not on the b file, on the c file, and he can too. A slight lead in development for black, just a tempo ahead. Where did I gain the tempo from? Because he spent some time bringing a knight into e5. I guess that's where it is. He moved a piece twice, and then he moved his bishop, his queen's bishop, his dark squared bishop. He's moved that twice. So there he is. He's that's why he's down a tempo here, a half tempo. See, theoretically, if he can't castle, but theoretically, if black castled or white castled here, development would be even. Except I have a threat on the position stopping him from castling. So black's got the advantage of the first move now. Not enough to win. White has no weaknesses in his position, but it's for black to make that kind of progress is always good. And there's still more chess to play, plenty more chess to play. So we'll see what happens. What I'm expecting is, I'm expecting him either to play c4 at some point, which may get him an isolated d-pawn, might not. His other choices, like I say, will be he'll trade on d6 and then take on c5, and once again, I think that's fine with me, and it allows me to build a pawn setter. I can get e5 in soon after. I'm not worried at all about bishop takes f6. I never was. I didn't discuss it ahead of time, but I'm not worried about it, simply because he doesn't have enough on the b1 h7 diagonal. I can deal with any threat he brings to me there, because I'll have f6 to f5 push available. Okay, so we're waiting for his move. I have 16 minutes. He has 21 minutes. And we're going to see what he does. We don't know what he's going to do yet until he does it. Is e4 a possibility? Not quite yet, because he's still got that little threat going. Well, let's see. e4, c4, bishop takes d6. Oh, no, he can't do that. I take his queen. The idea, he would be trying to do a fork with e4, e5, but he doesn't have time. He might try to combine that with something else. But for the moment, like I say, white's got all his pieces out except his king isn't castled. I've got all my pieces out and my king is castled. But the game is relatively even. No weaknesses really in either side. Just the fact that black has managed to maneuver and pick up a tempo. Like I say, black has got the advantage of the first move, wrested away from white. And that's not much, but when you can do that with black, you've done your job, because black is trying to equalize. White always has the advantage of the first move. And black must overcome that if he's going to win, or just not make any mistakes to hold his draw. And we all know how difficult it is to play without making a mistake. Shoot. We just have to limit them. The fewer mistakes we make, the more games we're going to win. I said that way back in lesson 001 of my program. Okay, so not too worried about time yet. Like I say, 16 minutes to play this game. I've been playing 15-0. In effect, I'm almost playing a 15-0 game now from a position that's only about, 12 moves in or something. But I like what I have. I guess he can be happy with what he has, but he didn't really play aggressive to get any kind of advantage. So what kind of a player is he? Well, we can't say. It looks like he's a slower positional player, but you can handle slower positional players just by patience. You just quietly play good, solid positional moves against them, and eventually they'll kind of run out of patience, and they can't maintain the pace of a very solid position, and they'll make that one little imprecision, that one impulsive move. They'll make it, and it just gives you just a little bit of edge, a little bit of kind of like when a leak occurs. Oh, good. It starts small and it becomes bigger in time. Okay, so like I say, wasn't worried in the least about that move. Okay, now what's he going to do? He's not doing anything here. He really isn't. Okay? Now, I could even play h6 here and just let him check me. Where's he going to go? The reason I might want to do that is to maintain some fluidity of playing e5. Because I can play f5 and just stop him in his tracks. So, let's see. He might try... If I play f5, he might try f3, bishop h5, and then castle queenside. He might try that, putting a interesting strategic imbalance on the game. But if that's the case, then what I'm liable to do is play c4 and make his bishop find a bad square, and then try and crack the center open or send a break with b5 and b4. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm looking at now. Will he try to castle kingside or queenside? I don't know. What will he try to do? We don't know. I think that's a kind of a faulty plan and gives me some potential to actually attack him quicker than he can attack me. Okay, let's see. Okay, so how would I want to do this? Let's see. Okay, f5 is fine. It was my original intent. It just stops his attack cold. So he plays f3. I play bishop h5, and now if he castles queenside, he thinks he's clever. I just play c4, and now bishop e2. And at some point, I have some tactical shots with bishop g6 and f4 of my own. So I just play b5. Now he wants to break open the king side. So what's he going to do? Play g4? Okay, g4. And if I take on g4 with f takes g4, he plays f takes g4, or he pins the pawn. Doesn't matter. I mean, with rook, by pinning the pawn, he'd put a rook on the g file. I still just drop bishop g6 back, and I think his queen's trapped. Okay, so f5 it is. I think h6 is just a little waste of time. It's clever in its own way. It's designed to keep the thrust e5 in, but if I really want to do that, I can do that soon enough on my own. I'm just going to play f5 and invite him to castle queenside, because I think it starts giving me all kinds of play against his king quicker than he gets it against mine. Okay, so he played bishop h3, and now he's planning g4. Well, that's fine. I don't mind. Okay, now, if I take on g4, he picks up a pawn with check. Not too worried about that. Okay, I'm just going to play bishop g6. And I don't mind getting double pawns here, because you'll see I've got some tricks of my own up my sleeve. Okay, now, like I say, if he's going to castle at all, he's most likely going to castle kingside or queenside, because he's got the very loose pawn structure on the king side. It's something I mentioned in the other line when I debated taking on e5, that would lead to some possibilities for me. So, okay, so if he takes on f5, I'm going to take with my e-pawn, and my next plan will be to play c4 and then follow with f4 and kind of things like that. But he's got to be careful about opening up the center with his king still caught in the middle, and I still have some potential attacks against him that he's got to watch out for. He really doesn't have enough development to attack me. That's why I can justify a slight weakening of my king position. Okay, so he took there on c5. Now, I guess the only logical move is to take this pawn off. Okay, so I got to recapture. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Now he castled. Oh my goodness, he's just asking for it, I think. Okay, how do we want to do this? Let me count the ways. Okay, have I captured? Let's see. How many pawns of his have I captured? One. The one pawn on d4 is gone. Okay, so now I've got the two bishops. I've got a light squared bishop. What I'd like to do is get e5 in at some point, but I can't get it in until I get rid of that f-pawn. Now, how do I want to get rid of the f-pawn? Okay, I've got 12.5 minutes left, plus a 5-second increment to find a problem. Now, he is open to draw offers. I mean, I'm not saying I'm losing, but I'm just saying if I don't think I can make any headway, I can always just offer a draw and see if he takes it. I can't believe he thinks he's going to win this game. Okay, if I take on f takes g4, he has bishop takes g6, which is fine. Then I take f g6, or what I want to take with the h-pawn. If I take with the h-pawn, he takes. Now I've got it with the h-pawn. Now I've got this backward, not backward. I've got this open h file, and I've got the bishop. For what it's worth, pawns on both sides of the board. I might want to take with the f-pawn, just simply to open up the f-file and make him worry about that. And I've got h7 covered. Okay, so as much as I'd like to try to get e5 in and e4, it's not really in the cards right at the moment. But I've got some counterplay on his f-pawn, and I can take a lot of the sting out of his attack with f takes g4. He just doesn't have a heck of a lot going. You know, he just finally completed his development at this moment now, and I've already had mine, and I've got some active play here as well. So if I take f takes g4, Now he may not take on g6, he may just take with his h-pawn, but I'm not too worried about that. I can in turn play f5 myself, and ooh, this is just opening things up wildly, huh? Pawn takes on f5, bishop takes, now he's got a check. Rook h8, d1, rook g1 check, king h8. I'm not too worried about this. He just doesn't have enough going there, or does he? I don't know. I want to play f takes g4, but there's some risk in it, and I'm just haven't finished analyzing all the possibilities. See, it's great, you know. When we analyze, we see things we want them to play, but they don't play that. They find something better to play. So ideally, if I play f takes g4, I would like him to take on g6 and open up the f file for me, but there's no guarantee he's going to do it. And when I play f takes g4, if he takes h takes g4, now I can play bishop takes d3 and queen takes d3. Now he's threatening a mate, and I've got to deal with that. Okay, so to deal with that, I could play f5, which stops the mate, and then I'm threatening a pawn. And if he takes it, I can take back with the rook, and I'm still threatening a pawn. Like I say, he gets a nuisance check in, but I've got that covered. Rook h g1 check, or d g1 check, king h8. Now rook g2. Well, you know, I can just oppose rooks and take a lot of the sting out of his attack. Rook dg1 or hg8, and he plays rook h2, and I play rook g2, and I've got an outside pass pawn and the bishop. Okay, there should be enough here to work things out. I fully expect him to take back with the h pawn. I would love it if he takes my bishop first. He has taken some of the sting out of my pawn roller attack on the queen side. It's just a little too slow now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play on the king side, because he's got some weak pawns there, and going to let him figure out what he wants to do. He can't break through with an attack. He just doesn't have enough. The question is, I'm going to try to find an endgame that is favorable for me, and the most favorable endgame for me is one where I can use my bishop against his knight in the long run. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is get to an ending where I can use my bishop versus his knight. Remember, he gave up the bishop pair to play for an attack, and he really doesn't have enough to justify an attack. And I'm not saying I'll win because of that way, but this is one of the ways sometimes a master wins a game against, say, a 2000, 2100 player. He just picks up this minor advantage and takes it down and covers everything, and then finally converts the edge. And I'm not saying the game's going to turn that way. You know, hey, I could blunder and lose this game. Okay, so he played there. Very good. All right. Now, like I say, what I can do is I want the f-file open. That's what I want. So I'm thinking about bishop takes d6 or d3 and then f5. I'm temporarily a pawn ahead. I'm not worried trying to keep the pawn. I'm trying to open up the f-file. That's what I'm trying to do. The thing about opening up the f-file is it gives me pressure on f2. That's what I want. Okay? So if I play f5, and I really, in some ways I want to play it, in some ways I don't. If I play f5, okay, now I've weakened g6 a little bit, so if he takes on g4, I take on g4 with my pawn, and now he plays rook takes g4, and he's climbing all over my bishop. You know, he's got 3 guys on it, and I got 1. I'm in trouble. So, okay. So I can't do that. Got to find a new move. Okay, it takes him a move to recapture his pawn. So, not too worried about that. One thing I can do is play since he has the possibility to open up the H file, I could play G3 and stop that. Of course, but then he gets possibilities of H4 and H5 in. Okay, what about if I take his bishop on D3 and then play F5? Okay, now if he takes with the pawn, I take with the pawn. Now I've got the F file open. I've got H7 covered. He takes on G4 with check. I play King H8. He plays Rook Gh4. Now he's crawling all over H7. Okay, I've got the outside pawn. I play Rook F7. And what's his follow-up? Okay, he has no follow-up unless he can use his knight. That's his last piece, right? So he has to play knight F3. And I just... do I take it? No, I can't take it because my queen would be... wouldn't be enough to defend her on H7. Okay, so knight F3, then I can play Rook G8, which stops knight G5, but it doesn't stop knight E5. Okay, so that's a problem. Is it? Probably. I don't think I have enough tricks. Okay, so little trouble here. Got to figure it out. You know, like I say, black shouldn't have enough of an attack here, but I went ahead and allowed it. So maybe may have to dig in a little harder and find some moves here. Let's see. Of course, I can play F5, and on H takes G, I can slide my king to H8. That seems to be okay. Okay, so let's see. F5, that takes away some of the sting. F takes G, king H8. Now, G takes F5, bishop takes F5. And, yeah, that seems to work. So F5 might be my move after all. F5, H takes G, king H8. What's he going to do? I can take back on F5 with the bishop and the pin's broken. Now he can't play knight F3 at some point because, okay, F5 is the move. Unless I blundered something, this kind of takes the sting out, lets me do some of the things I want to do. And I'm not expecting to remain a pawn ahead. I can deal with the pawn minus. It's not a problem. I mean, with him regaining his pawn, I'm not worried about that. I'm just, like I say, got to make sure I don't get checkmated. Got to make sure I don't have a decisive loss of material here, and potential endgame should favor me. So we just got to out-technique him. Okay, now he played there. Now we do king H8 and let him take back his pawn. Okay? Okay, so now the next step will be, of course he doesn't have to take the pawn, but what else does he have here? If he plays knight F3, I can use my bishop to keep him out of E5, and could probably find a few other good things to do. Now I'm not really threatening to play F takes G4. I don't want that at all. That just opens him up and gives everything he wants on G6. The point is that I want him taking on F5, and I can take back with my bishop, and everything is hunky-dory and covered. And, okay, good. He did exactly what I wanted. Now, did I miss a trick here? Bishop takes F5. What if he plays Rook takes H7 check? Oh, no, I'm covered against that. Okay, so he did what I wanted. Thank you. So sometimes your opponent will cooperate and do the things you wanted. I think he had better there, but until I do a post-mortem on this, I don't know. So let's see. I've got what I want. I've got the F file open. I've got an outside pass pawn. I've got... I can be opposing rooks here in a moment when I need to. If he takes on F5, I'll take back with the rook and be ready to swing the other rook over. That's my plan anyway. Okay, so where we stand. I have 4 minutes left. Wow. You can really use time in a hurry on these things when you're if you're not careful. But that's what's fun about chess. You can just sit here and analyze and look deeper, and who knows what you can come up with. Okay, so he did get an attack here, but he really doesn't have the decisive attack. And I've covered everything, and I've picked up some potential long-term advantages. They're not advantages yet. The bishop versus the knight ending, that's what I'm steering for in the outside pass pawn. My next step will be I got to keep a rook on the F file. I got to get the rook on A8 over to the G file. And if he helps me by taking on F5, that makes it all the easier. Otherwise, I have to stop and remaneuver things. I could play rook E8 and then rook E7 and rook G7, or I could slide the rook up, lose a tempo, rook F7, and then I'm ready to bring the other rook over. And he can, like I say, make it lose a tempo by then capturing on F5. So if he tries knight F3 here, I have potential moves like bishop D6. Then he gets knight D4 in. I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. Knight F3, bishop takes D3. Is that any good? Yeah, it is. Bishop takes D3, queen takes D3, rook takes F3. And he doesn't have enough going to checkmate me or win enough material back. Okay, so he's down to 13 minutes. I have 4.41 minutes, 4 minutes 41 seconds, and a little 5-second increment to keep me from losing on time, but I will have to play blitz chess. So how much more can I comment? I can comment more on his move. What's his move going to be? Is E4 worth a shot? Might be. Might not be. I can just take it, I suppose, and he takes it with the knight, and I don't know, it's tricky. E4. What do I do? E4. Can always drop the bishop back if I have to, but then it runs into those pins on G6. It's good on F5. It's not so good there, so I might have to take. He takes with the knight. Now, where's he threatening? What's he threatening I should worry about? Don't really want to take it with the... I could play bishop takes knight, and he plays bishop takes. And I take rook takes F2, and he gets rook takes H7 in, and I take with the queen. And he takes, and I take his queen with check, and I win. Tricky. I don't know if you saw all that, and there may be a major flaw in that could cost me the game. But E4 might win if there's a win for white. It's with it's with E4, and combined with some of those other tricks. But it looks like, at least in that line, I have resources. The only question is there a Zwischenzug or a just a simpler move to keep everything going that I've overlooked, and that's what's one of the drawbacks with a short time control. You may not always find the move you really need simply because of a lack of time. So E4 is certainly his most interesting try here. E4, I take with my pawn. He takes with his knight, and I play a risky bishop takes E4. He takes on E4. Now I play rook takes F2. Now what I've said is his rook takes H7 fails, so let's suppose he just moves his queen. No, he didn't. He doubled his rooks. Okay, so back to this. A simple logical move for me to play now is, well, I could play rook D8. That takes the sting out of E4 away. He's planning to play rook GH2. So if I play rook E8, I'm ready to bring a rook up to E7 and get it over to the G file. Now on E4, if I put it on D8, it's not threatening to swing over. So let's just play rook E8 here because I'm running out of time. Okay, rook E8, rook AE8. Okay, what's it going to do? You think he's going to play rook h2. That's just the way logic thinks. But sometimes these things can get tricky, and they find other moves that just totally mess you up. Don't work for you like you wanted them to. But I'm planning to play rook e7 and then find an appropriate way to trade the light squared bishops where I have h7 well covered. I've just got to cover that square. So white has an attack, but like I say, he really shouldn't have any kind of a decisive attack. He's got an attack that's defendable, and I've allowed it. I purposely allowed it, and I should be fine here. Like I say, I've just got to play carefully. He's down to under 10 minutes. I'm down to under 4 minutes. If he takes on f5, once again I take right away with the rook, and I have some f-file activity, although he has covered the weakness on f2. This might be a time to play e4. No, he played there. Okay, so I've just got to play quickly and cover h7. Okay, that's covered. Okay, so once again, we don't mind if he plays bishop takes f5 because I take back with my rook. This is his last try for e4 here. Is it worth something now? Maybe, maybe not, because I've got h7 better covered, so not too worried, as much worried about e4 as a possibility as I was. He's down to 9 minutes. So now the question is, now maybe I'm going to be wanting to play bishop takes d3 myself, since I've got h7 pretty covered. I'm on it 3 times, queen, rook, and king. And he played e4. There it is. Okay. But again, it's not something I'm overly worried about. Okay. Okay, let's do this quickly. The bishop's attacked, so I've got to deal with that. Okay? So, how do I deal with it? If I take with the pawn, he takes with the knight. Now, if I take... his knight's now attacking my bishop. If I take the knight off, he takes off. And now he's on h7 4 times. I'm on h2. So, well, I'm on f2, I should say. Where do I have... I can always play rook f7, and I'm on it 4 times. And he doesn't have a heck of a lot. Okay, so if I take on... if I play bishop g6, he takes on d5. Bishop d6. Takes on d5. Now he's threatening the bishop, so I stop and take his bishop, right? And then he takes with the queen, and I take with the pawn to keep protection on g7. Okay, so let's see. I don't want his knight getting into play. I'm going to play bishop g6. It might be a mistake, but I'm going to do it. Because I'm running out of time. I don't have enough time to analyze all this stuff out. I don't play blitz well, and we're now down to a blitz mode for me, so I've just got to play on instinct. He did change his move order and found some better ways. One of the things I was saying, he found some better ways to continue. You don't always have to go into the main line. You find other ways to do it. And he delayed e4. So I'm delaying a couple things here, and I can get away with bishop g6 simply because I am it's not pinned, and he's not attacking it. It would be pinned if he could take it, because the h pawn is not guarding it. And I can delay doing things just as he was delaying doing things, and I don't want to bring his knight into play if I can help it. So on e takes d5, I'm going to take with my bishop on d3, and then he'll take with the queen, and then I can play e takes d5, and I've got an isolated pawn on d5, but I'm not worried about that because I have plenty of other compensation. I'm covering h7 still. I'm pressuring f2, and we'll go from there. So how much can I say here? I'm going to have to look more at the clock as a little bit as we go here, as he's trying desperately. And I don't mind if on bishop takes d3 if he does the solutions of d takes e6, because I think it just ends up trading off another set of pawns and gets the queens off the board. And I'll still have some of those long-term advantages that I wanted. I'll have the bishop and the outside pawn. So bishop g6 works here. He could play a rook to the g file and be threatening to take on g6. Of course, I can deal with that in a number of ways. I can play rook g7, which guards the bishop, and I can, okay, he took. Now we take on d3 as planned. Okay. So the way I did this, it kept his knight from getting into the game, and I don't want to take with the queen obviously on d5 because h7 it would be embarrassed. Okay, so now I've got a threat on f2 for what it's worth. Okay, his f2 pawn is under attack. I'm molesting it, so to speak. So now with h7 covered, I can start thinking of other moves like queen f5, trying to get a queen trade and go down to an ending. Again, I'm not so worried about having an isolated pawn on d5. He could attack it again, but he's got a problem on f2 at the same time, and then, although if those pawns come off, it may become drash simply because he has a 3-on-2 on the queen side, but not too worried about that. You know, if the game ends up a draw, it ends up a draw. What can I do? I've got some potential winning chances now through all my maneuvering, and it rests in the fact that I have the bishop and he has an outside pass, and I have an outside pass pawn. Okay, so he's got a weakness on f2. I've got a weakness on d5, but I'm not too worried about the weakness on d5. At this point, I'm just not. Okay, so rook h5 is an interesting move for him, and but it lets me get on the 7th rank. It might not be a move he wants to play. He might play a cautious f3 here. He might try a number of things, but he's not going anywhere with his kingside attack. I've stopped that cold, unless I'm just really missing something. Especially, like I say, his knight can't get into play, and that was the whole idea of e4, was to encourage me to take on e4 and with my pawn and get his knight into the game. But I stopped that in a clever way, I think, with the bishop g6. The game's almost an hour old. Wow. Okay, knight b3. Not too worried about that so much. He's planning to get to d4. Now, if I take on f2, I could end up getting pinned, but I can hold that. What if I attack his rook? Well, he takes. What if I just attack his rook? Bishop. Okay. I don't know. Let's see. He's gonna get his. I'm running out of time. Bishop takes f2. I don't really want to grab it and run into pins and stuff, although I should be okay. Bishop takes f2. I'm just going to play but this might require me to get rid of my bishop advantage. Dang it. Bishop b6, knight d4. Then I might have to take it off in order to get queen f5 in. Well, can't always get everything you want. Bishop b6. I just have to make a choice like this because I'm low on time. Unfortunately, but I still keep the threat on f2. It's not going away. And if he plays knight d4, I am going to take it off with my bishop. And then I'm going to develop my queen on f5. Well, maybe not. He's on a6. Oh, he'd be checking, so I can't. So knight d4, we just let him go there. And we live with it. And we do something like double up our rooks. Or maybe we don't. I don't know. What do I do? Got 51 seconds left. Shoot. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Okay, let's see. I always play the quiet rook f8 to f7, further solidifying protection of h7. That would free the queen to some respects, because I can't really run the queen away off that 7th rank, my 2nd rank, because h7 falls. So I'll just solidify h7. You know, that outside pass pawn advantage I have hasn't really gone away. His knight on d4 is a good square, but I don't really have to get rid of it just yet. Okay, so now I just play rook here. What's he threatening I should worry about? Nothing. Okay, boom. Now, like I say, I've got h7 covered. So now my queen is a little free to roam around. It can go to maybe g4 and threaten some nuisance checks and get to e4. Okay. Now, what squares in the back rank could he play queen g3, which threatens a queen check, but is really that all that valuable for him? I don't know. I can always just block it. I can always take his knight off, and he can't take back on d4 with check, and yeah, it should be okay. If he plays queen g3, I can just play bishop takes d4. Okay, he's running low on time now too, so his huge time advantage that he had on me is disappearing, but we'll let it. Okay, so my plan here is to play queen g4 next. That's what I want to. If it was my move, that's what I would be trying to play here, queen g4. And the idea again is to give a check on f4 maybe, and then get the queen to e4. Okay, so let's see. What are we going to do next? Queen, what's he going to do? g8 is unprotected. He could try to go for that, but I can cover that easily enough. I'm not too worried about that one. That square, but I can't forget it. You know, with only 52 seconds to think, sometimes it's easy to overlook things unless you talk about them and can put them in the back of your head and say, don't forget that g8 is weak, but he's still 2 moves away from threatening there and needs a 3rd move to administer mate on that way. So rook g1, queen g3, queen g8 mate. Got plenty of time to deal with that. So on rook g1 or g2, I can't play queen d6. He gets a knight fork unless I have a check. I have a check on f4 to get out of it. Okay, f3, good. Okay, so now he's covered me from going to g4. That's fine. If I play queen d6, knight f5, queen f4 check, he loses, right? He has knight b5. I still play check. What's he going to do against that? He can't play rook takes. Okay, queen d6. Let's bait him into a blunder. Play knight f5. This also ties his 1 rook down. He can't necessarily play rook g1 in this position because his rook on h2 hangs. So I'm threatening to give a check. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm planning to give a check. And I may be taking that knight on d4 soon anyway.
Draw offered.
No, I'm not taking a draw. I want to play. But thank you for the offer. Okay, now we're going to do it. Queen f4. Okay, let's stop your mate and let's get a queen trade and go for the ending. Okay, now I'm threatening to win one or two pawns. Bishop takes d4, and both his pawns are loose, so he's got to stop and defend. Okay, 39 seconds. I have a 5-second increment. Okay, now I just take this guy off. And I've won a pawn. Okay, got to watch h7. It's a problem. So let's see. 36 seconds left, 5-second increment. What I would like to do is let's just pressure his pawn. Okay, let's play rook f4 and pressure the pawn. The point of that is, okay, he wants to do the same. Okay, now let's see. Suppose I play d4. Looks like a logical move. Worst case scenario is, what is the worst case scenario? Okay, I got to get on the 7th rank. So let's go threaten to get it. Let's just take it now.
Check.
7th rank, check. Okay. Now, okay. Technique is needed. King g7. Centralize the king, prepare the king to advance. Get the h-pawn rolling. I got 16 seconds left, but at least I have a 5-second increment. Okay, king g6, preparing h5. Well, that just gives me a pawn. Thank you.
Check. Check.
And another pawn. Now we didn't do this. Okay, he's got some activity, but we'll stop that. Just put the rook here, and he can't get in.
Check.
Okay, we got passed pawns. Let's get them running. But next step, put a rook behind the pawn and start shoving it. Okay, here goes. Like I say, here he goes. Okay, now his rook can't move. His rook moves, I make a queen. Okay, so I'll just gobble this pawn. Now we'll start sending this one up. What can he do? He can't do anything. Okay, it's a textbook win now for black. There's quite a lot to this. He got an attack that I didn't really expect him to have. He's going to run out of checks eventually. Oh, he just redeployed the king. Okay, well, you're going to run out of checks. Okay, so
check.
He's now we just set up like the Lucina position. Well, I don't know. Let's just push this one. The idea here is I want to run that pawn up to a2 with check and drive his king out. I'll just park my king in front of my pawn where he can't check me and just give him too many threats to deal with.
Check.
Okay, I'll just put it on a7. Or h2, I should say. I'm probably messing this up, but I'm short of time and I don't have time to look at this Okay, let's see. What do we got to do to win this? You want to trade rooks? I don't think so. So now we'll just, I guess, build a bridge or something, so to speak. You can't trade rooks. He's got to move his rook somewhere on the file. He went there. That's fine. I'll just shove the pawn again. As I said, my plan is to push the pawn to a2.
Check.
Now, like I say, I'm going to get close to the Lucena position here, where he runs out of checks, and I stick a rook in between. The idea still is to play the idea still is to play to a2 if I can get away with it. Now here I guess I'll just interpose my rook. May not be using perfect technique here,
Check.
but okay, here. Let's trade rooks. Now you can have both my queenside pawns if you want them, because I'm going to promote the rook pawn on the king side. And here he comes.
Check. Check.
Let's see how he stops it.
Check.
Okay, put his rook on the 8th rank and let me queen, and hurdle it. I had to make sure that position didn't come up a few moves back with my king on h4, because then I could lose it. But here,
Game over.
Game over. Thank you for the game. It was good, interesting game. And thanks all of you for your time, for watching this. It's going to go just over an hour. I hope you learned something from it. Take care.